Hello, morning. Welcome to the first introductory video for people and the natural environment. I am sitting in my back garden in Sheffield, and it's the end of July 2020, and we don't know yet how we're going to be teaching in September, but likely you're going to be sitting watching me on a screen for a few of the sessions at least. So what we thought we'd do is some short videos introducing the themes of each of the weekly sessions so that you can get a bit of a flavour for what we're going to be talking about, and then there'll be lots of other materials for you to look at as well. So this is the introductory session, and what I'd like to do today is set the scene for the module. We're going to be going to a couple of different places in and around my local neighbourhood to talk about some of those things. We're going to start off here. So what I want to do with the module People in the Natural Environment is to have a kind of holistic exploration of the relationship between people and the natural environment. And we're going to look at that in some practical ways, but also in some kind of theoretical and philosophical ways. So how do we see ourselves in relation to the natural environment, and how does that affect the way that we treat the natural environment and what we expect to take from it and what we expect to give back. So one of the kind of key themes that it's interesting to think about for the module is the Anthropocene. So for those of you that are already familiar with the term Anthropocene, great, but if you're not, that's okay too. So the Anthropocene is, it's not yet been fully accepted as the epoch that we're in, but there is some people chatting in my neighbours. A suggestion that we are in a new geological epoch, the Anthropocene. And the Anthropocene, the anthro in Anthropocene is us. It's the idea that human beings now have had such an impact upon natural planetary systems that there is actually evidence of us in the geological record. And when in future generations, hopefully, human beings come to explore the geological record, they will be able to identify the point at which human beings started to have a big influence upon planetary systems, and that could be through things like our industrial practices, our agricultural practices, our use of nuclear weapons and nuclear power. So there are lots of different theories around the Anthropocene, but what makes it interesting for a module like this is that that would be a big change in the way that we understood our relationship with nature. So historically we would have seen ourselves as at the mercy of nature, and increasingly we've been trying to gain control over nature. And now we're at the point where we're starting to think, okay, so are we actually separate from nature? Can we distinguish ourselves as being outside of it? So it doesn't make much sense really to think of ourselves as conquering nature if once we've conquered it, we then kind of wipe ourselves out because we realise that we needed all of those natural systems to live. So the ideas that kind of influence the way that people relate to the natural environment include things like theories of natural selection and evolution, which gives us this idea of primacy, that we are the fittest, we have survived, and we are the theory of survival of the fittest. But if you think about how long human beings have actually been on the planet, then we don't really have a proven track record yet. We've only just arrived, and we've started to probably mess up the place quite significantly in the small time that we've been here. So the idea that we are the fittest because we have survived this long doesn't really stack up when you think about things like the Earth History Clock. So the Earth History Clock shows how long all the different species have been on the face of the Earth, and really human beings on that World History Clock have only just arrived. So we have yet to prove ourselves a species of longevity, and we are at a critical time for thinking about things like that. So you will be probably aware of things like the Extinction Rebellion, the kind of rising up of awareness about actually how critical our relationship with the natural environment is. So rather than thinking about the environment as something that we need to protect for its own sake, we're now seeing it as part of our own fight against extinction as a species. So the language has changed, and the way that we relate to the natural environment is starting to change. And of course, it's impossible to ignore where we're at the moment in terms of the impact of COVID-19. So we are in the middle of still, as I film this, the global pandemic. Lockdown restrictions are easing in the UK, but globally things are getting worse at the moment, and it's been a significant time of reflection, because what we're starting to realise is there's probably a relationship between the way that we have degraded our natural environments and the way that we've treated our natural environments and the impact that this virus is having. We certainly know that there's a relationship between poor air quality and people's experiences of the virus and how severely they've been impacted by it. So there are some big, serious issues for us to think about in terms of our relationship with the natural environment. So I'm going to leave the garden now, and we're going to take a little walk up the road to have a look at the point at which the human environment passes into the natural environment. So I'll see you in a bit. Hi, so now we are out in the neighbourhood, and as part of the module I'm asking you to start to question this distinction between people and the natural environment, the idea that we're actually separate entities. And so one of the ways I've decided to try and demonstrate that is take you for a walk up a typical Sheffield neighbourhood street. So you can see behind me late 19th, early 20th century housing, and back at the end of the road there you can get the bus into town, 10 minutes into town, and as you walk this way you'll start to see that this is one of the great benefits of the city of Sheffield, is that it opens up out onto the countryside. So we are technically about to pass from the human environment to the natural environment. So what's interesting about this is that although you could say that there's a clear distinction between the built environment, the human environment there, and the natural environment here, if we look out over these hills we can actually see that this is dominated by people as well. So we're in an area of recreational green space, but out behind me there, the city stretches out into the countryside. There are houses stretching along the top of the hills. You can see agricultural field patterns out there. Behind me over here there is a cemetery, and just at the edge over there are allotment gardens. So although this is a natural environment, it's still dominated by people. We've manipulated this. This is where we get our resources from. This is how we feed ourselves. It's a little continuity area. You can see from my hair that this has been filmed a little bit later. So just to wrap up this introductory video for People and Natural Environment Session 1, I hope on this module we're going to really work to reconcile our relationship with the natural environment in a way that is appropriate for the 21st century and moving forward as a species. The experience of COVID-19 continues to be humbling to us as a species, I hope. We've realised that in fact we haven't mastered nature. We need natural systems to live, and on this module we're going to be exploring different theories and philosophies, both ancient and contemporary, that are going to help us to think differently about the relationship between people and the natural environment. And what a beautiful natural environment we have to enjoy. Look forward to seeing you in class.